Hi, my name is Manuel Delgado. I'm the owner of Delgado Guitars based in Nashville, Tennessee. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our family's business, a little bit about our history, and I want to tell you also what it means to be a luthier, and in the case of our business, what it means to be an old world luthier. So Delgado Guitars was a business started by my grandfather and my great uncle back in 1928. The business was originally started in Torreon, Coahuila, in Mexico. In the 30s, they moved the business to Juarez, Chihuahua, which is right on the other side of El Paso, Texas. And then my father was actually born in El Paso, but he was registered and grew up in Juarez till he was about 12, 13 years old. In 1948, my grandfather and great uncle came to the United States and they started a business in Los Angeles, later sending for his wife and all of his kids. This is a story of many immigrants as you look at the American history. My dad grew up in Southern California from the time he was about 13 and up, and started in the business at a young age also, and actually after getting out of the Army and serving some time during the Army, he got into the family business as well and continued the business. And then when I was born, I was first generation born in the United States. My mother was also born in Mexico. I continued in the business. I started at a very young age. At the time I was 5, I started to play guitar. When I was 7, I started to actually do some minor repairs, and I actually built my first guitar when I was 12 years old. I wanted to beat my father's record. He was 14 when he built his first one. And I was fortunate to grow up in the shop, and obviously I've continued in the family's business. And I'm fortunate I have 2 daughters. One is 12 now and the other one is 6. And my 12-year-old beat my record. She actually built her first instrument when she was 9. So we now have 4 generations of luthiers in our family. What a luthier is a luthier is somebody who hand makes musical instruments. It's a term that was originated early on. Nowadays there's people who do different things with musical instruments. They might use big machines called CNCs or lasers or different computers, and sometimes they'll also call themselves a luthier because they're in the world of making musical instruments. So then the term later came out, what's called an old world luthier, and that's what I am. So an old world luthier is somebody who still uses the techniques of the old world. So for example, instead of having a machine come out and just shape and cut everything for you, we actually maybe shape the necks by hand with a knife. We plane the wood still by hand. We use chisels. We use our hands and sandpaper. We scrape things. We form things with heat and water, turning the wood, making a steam system so that we can start bending things. All of this done by hand. That's where the term old world comes in, instead of having everything mass produced or done by machines. And to give you a little bit of an example of, if you're familiar with other guitar companies that are very well known and large corporations, a large corporation might produce something like, let's say, 77,000 instruments in a year. We do about 18 on average. So that gives you an idea of the difference of what we're doing. We're a very small shop, and we've chosen to stay doing things in a traditional manner, the way that my grandfather and my great uncle and my dad. We do have a lot of modern conveniences that maybe weren't available to them in the late 20s, early 30s, 40s, 50s, but we've still chosen to stick with building the instruments in that traditional way. We have a belief that if you start to make a compromise, it's just a slippery slope, and it's easier to keep going down that path, and then you start maybe giving other compromises other areas, and we're just choosing not to do that. So for us, yes, we're making a product, you could say, whether it be a guitar or a vihuela or a guitarrón, and in a later episode we're going to explain what the different musical instruments are. But it's also an art. So for us, what we do, it's very important that we put our heart and our soul and our family tradition into it. And having a history that we do, being fortunate to have the different clients who have played our instruments, it's very important that we're not just putting a piece of woods together that with strings on and you can play. It's something that's going to be used by artists, whether they're aspiring artists or they're well-known artists. And we want that musical instrument to sing. We want it to have a story. In fact, one of the taglines that we have for our business is, does your guitar have a story? And it's because we believe that each piece of wood individually has a story. We look at it and we try to find the best potential and what we can get out of that piece of wood. What is it that maybe about that particular grain style or that figure speaks to us? Is there a type of instrument that we think that would work better for? If we're making a ukulele, let's say, perhaps that type of wood that we're looking at, if it's koa, might be better for that instrument. If we're making a concert classical guitar, what kind of woods do we want to use in combination to design that? So, and this is also something that we're going to get into in other episodes and explain to you. But for us, because of our family tradition and our history and who we are and what we stand for, there's so many things that are wrapped up in what we do. See, for us, building instruments is more than just a business. It's a way of life. It's an art form. It's a craft. And it's a way to honor our history and our heritage. So I'm excited for you to be able to see a little bit of who we are, where I've come from, where we plan to go, and also what the plans are for the future of Delgado Guitars, and how the past has helped shape the direction that we're going, and why it's important for us to stick with that path, and something that I think that you'll be excited to learn about as well. Keeping an art form alive can be a challenge, especially when it tries to remain in one family through generations. At times, I find myself trying to imagine what my grandfather felt, or my great uncle, seeing the business that was now gaining notoriety, knowing the pride they must have felt when my father continued the art form, and having the blessing of my father tell me how proud he was of me. And now for me, seeing my daughters show an interest. I have great memories growing up, working side by side with my grandfather, watching him, learning from him. The same way I imagine my father learned from his father and from his uncle. I learned so many lessons, not only directly, but just by watching my grandfather and my father interact. Patience. My grandfather would say, despacito porque llevamos prisa, which means take your time because we're in a hurry. Taking the time to do things well and do them correctly the first time is important. This can be applied to so many different things in life. Patience with friendships, with family, with the people around you. When you infuse those values in your art, people take notice. You're remembered for caring, for wanting to do things in a way that's special. And when you're doing that on a musical instrument, the people who play those instruments gain inspiration from your art and then their art touches others as well. Imagine the opportunity to create something that lives beyond you. I still have amazing moments when I get to work on an instrument that my father built, or my grandfather, or my great uncle. I remember a time when I worked on an instrument that my father had made, and I realized that I was the same age that he was when he had built that instrument. I don't know if my daughters will continue on in the business. To be honest, that's not really as important to me. What's important is that they learn to create things, to be artists, that they learn the value of being an artist, the art form, the love, the traditions, the pride, the history and the heritage. Those are the things that I want them to take away. There's a feeling you get when you create something with your own hands that nothing else can come close to. Then imagine having that completed instrument, getting to hold it in your hands, getting to see another artist play it and perform with it. That feeling for me is what makes it all worthwhile and why I love what I do. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned a little bit about who we are, our family, and our tradition. And we're excited to teach you a little bit more on some of the different aspects of what it is to be an artisan